June 14th, 2024, Ahliana Dickey, just 15 years old, was supposed to be celebrating her 8th grade graduation. Instead, her family was left scrambling to find her, worry mounting with every unanswered call. And by the time they arrived at her Lawrence Street apartment, it was too late. At 6:10 p.m., Ahliana's grandmother made a desperate call to the Lowell Police Department, reporting what no family should ever have to. Her granddaughter was unresponsive. Officers found her in the first-floor bedroom, surrounded by shell casings. Her body bore the unmistakable marks of gun violence. This was not just a murder. It was an execution. Welcome to Crime Bites. I'm your host, Carrie Drobin, former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney, and award-winning true crime author. The details that emerged painted a picture as disturbing as it was tragic. Trevor Beatty wasn't just an older boyfriend. He was a predator. And predators, like Beatty, don't strike randomly. They choose their victims carefully, exploiting vulnerabilities and weaving a web of control so intricate it becomes nearly impossible for the victim to escape. Theirs wasn't a relationship. It was exploitation fraught with abuse, threats, and a chilling disregard for human life. At 21, Beatty was a grown man targeting a teenager. Why did no one report that? He exploited the natural insecurities of adolescence, the desire for love and validation, and weaponized them against Ahliana. Witnesses came forward reluctantly with stories of him hitting her, bruising her, even giving her a bloody lip. Her legs, knees, and arms bore the physical evidence of his violence, and yet nobody did anything. Ahliana herself told friends and family that Beatty had threatened to kill her and her grandmother, to shoot up her house, even to kidnap her. These were not idle threats. Yet no one intervened. Why? It's easy to blame the family, the friends, the bystanders, but let's talk about the psychology of inaction. Trevor Beatty's behavior wasn't just abusive, it was calculated. Individuals like him rely on control, isolation, intimidation to silence their victims and anyone who might step in. Family members often feel paralyzed, torn between fear of escalating the violence and the shame of not knowing how to help. They're not trained to handle predators, and let's be honest, most of society isn't. We're uncomfortable with confrontation, unsure where to turn, and often complicit in the silence that abusers count on. Ahliana's injuries should have been a red flag, a blaring alarm that something was deeply wrong. But here's the harsh reality. Victims of abuse, especially teens, are often dismissed. Peers don't want to get involved, fearing they'll become targets themselves. Adults don't take the relationship seriously, though why wouldn't they when it was literally statutory rape? And then there's the system, a system that sees bruises and broken bones but demands proof beyond a reasonable doubt before it acts and completely discounts the scars of psychological abuse. And what about Trevor Beatty? At 21, he already had a criminal record. A year earlier, he'd been involved in a beating, kicking, and robbing another teen. And then there was the gunshot incident where he allegedly fired at a man. Both cases were dismissed. Witnesses didn't show up. Identification issues prevailed. And let's not forget fear of retaliation. If you're a teenager, a neighbor, or a friend, how do you feel safe testifying against someone like Beatty? You don't. And there's no witness protection for cases like these. I mean, you're left to fend for yourself. This is not a federal crime where you're testifying against a mob. And that's exactly what Beatty counted on. June 14th wasn't the first time police were called about Trevor and Ahliana either. Earlier that day, a neighbor reported a fight outside. The caller heard a girl screaming, "Get off me, get away from me, I don't want to be with you anymore." Then gunshots. By the time officers arrived, it was too late. Surveillance footage showed Ahliana's final movements, pleading for her life as Trevor Beatty walked away, untouched by the destruction he'd caused. Beatty's capture didn't come immediately either. He fled, are you ready for this? Taking an Uber to his new girlfriend's house. The driver, visibly shaken, later described Beatty as sweaty, mumbling about being upset up, asking him to wipe down the car's handles. But here's the thing about technology. It doesn't lie. Uber's logs placed him squarely at the crime scene. And thankfully, the Uber driver also came forward. But surveillance footage and wiped fingerprints only confirmed his guilt. And on June 17th, police found him hiding out with his new girlfriend like the coward he was. But let's go back to the systematic failure. Why didn't anyone relocate Ahliana? Why wasn't a restraining order sought? The most dangerous time for a victim, as we all know, is when they try to leave. I mean, did her family know that? Were they given the tools to protect her? Or were they, like so many others, left to navigate an impossible situation on their own? And what about the broader picture? 1 in 5 high school students experience sexual and physical violence in their relationships. 1 in 5. Add stalking and harassment, and that nearly half of all teens are affected. And this isn't just a problem, it's an epidemic. And the system isn't designed to save them or protect them. It's reactive, not proactive. It waits for tragedy before it acts. Trevor Beatty will face justice in the courtroom, but Ahliana Dickey won't be there to see it. She'll remain a statistic, a name on a list that grows longer every day until we demand better from our laws, our communities, and ourselves. None of us can afford to be ignorant or remain silent. Ignoring psychological abuse comes at an incredibly high cost, both for individuals and society as a whole. And while physical abuse often leaves visible scars, psychological abuse can inflict long-term, invisible damage that erodes self-esteem, emotional stability, and overall mental health. Victims may struggle with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and difficulty forming healthy relationships, which can persist long after the abusive situation ends. Ignoring this form of abuse perpetuates cycles of harm, as victims internalize the abuse or in some cases repeat these patterns in their own relationships. On a broader scale, untreated psychological abuse contributes to societal issues at large, including lost productivity, strained healthcare systems, and the perpetuation of unhealthy family dynamics. Helping teens experiencing domestic violence or abusive relationships requires a multifaceted approach that prioritizes their safety and well-being. I mean, schools can play a vital role in this by implementing programs that educate students about healthy relationships, consent, and the warning signs of abuse. They can have discussions about respect and boundaries and the danger of toxic dynamics, can be integrated into the curriculum, creating a foundation for awareness. I mean, schools should also establish confidential reporting channels, such as access to school counselors or anonymous tip lines, and ensure that staff are trained to recognize signs of abuse and respond. I mean, visible resources such as hotlines and counseling services and partnerships with local domestic violence organizations can further empower teens to seek help. But a supportive school environment where students feel safe discussing personal issues is essential. I mean, we have bullying programs, we have anti-harassment programs, we have whole campaigns on that, but we don't have it for domestic violence or psychological abuse. Parents, too, have a critical role in supporting teens by fostering open communication and creating a judgment-free environment where children can feel comfortable discussing their relationships. I mean, look how many times Ahliana talked about this, right? But nobody was actively listening or validating her feelings. But that's key. Parents need to stay alert for warning signs, such as withdrawal, unexplained injuries, shifts in mood or academics, and they need to take note of that if their teens are becoming overly secretive. And what about social media? Oh my God, like take a look at what your children are doing. Educating teens about healthy relationships, including the importance of mutual respect and trust and consent, is vital. Parents need to model that. But if they can't model it, at least talk about it, right? Provide those resources like counseling or support groups, or, have them reach out online to things where they might feel more comfortable. Teens need to be reminded that they are not alone, that help is always available. Collaboration between schools and parents can amplify these efforts to support teens, sharing resources such as hotline numbers and counseling contacts. I mean, can you tell I'm on my soapbox? I'm on a podium here because I see this time and time again in the work that I do. And I see it constantly being ignored until after the fact. And that's when people get irate. That's when people want to raise awareness and through campaigns and encourage teens to participate in peer-led discussions. But they don't do it until it's too late. There is a national domestic violence hotline. It's 1-800-799-SAFE, or you can text START to 88788. I mean, love is respect. It should be widely shared. Together, schools, parents can build a safe and informed community. And I will get off my soapbox when people start to take action and stop being reactive. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. It helps me grow. And if you or someone you know is in a dangerous situation, please reach out to local authorities, to hotlines, to support organizations. Meanwhile, stay informed, stay vigilant, and above all, stay safe.